welcome to the stage, Galen Druk.
A bit of an obstacle. Hello, hello. Well, hello and welcome to the first ever live taping of the GD Politics Podcast. I'm Galen Druk, and I want to start by saying an enormous thank you to everyone who is here tonight and everyone who has supported this adventure so far. It's been an awful lot to me, and we've gotten a lot done since 538 shut down, what was it, last month? I don't know if you've heard, but the intersection of politics and media is a tumultuous place right now, to say the least. And we're going to talk plenty about that. But I need to start on like an earnest note for just a second, because I have some thank yous. My former editor from 538 is here somewhere in the audience tonight. Chad? Anyone? No? Anyone? Hey, Chad. Okay. So I'm going to use some of the knowledge that he taught me. And although we usually save the thank yous for the end, it's actually the most important thing I have to do tonight. So we're going to go first. So first and foremost, I want to thank every single person here in the audience tonight for coming out. Listeners, friends, family, everyone. Thank you so much. So give yourselves a round of applause. I want to say a big thank you to my friends at the Comedy Cellar who very graciously hosted us tonight. It's really fun to be here, right here in the Village in New York City. And then, of course, I also want to say an enormous thank you to the best former colleagues a girl could hope for who are joining me on the stage tonight. So give them a round of applause. We're going to go one by one. All right, so going in order, we have, of course, Clare Malone.
Hi, Galen.
Yeah.
Good to be here.
Long time crowd favorite. She covers politics and media as a staff writer at The New Yorker.
That's right.
And we worked together at 538, 4 years ago at this point?
Yeah, they fired me 4 years ago. No, 5 years ago.
You're gonna get there's a pattern here. Next up is the founder of it all, Nate Silver, founder of 538 and now Silver Bulletin.
This is like a 97th percentile New York night, right? It's warm out, it's April. Are the Knicks on tonight? I don't know, but thank you for coming, seriously.
So Nate, we actually did our last live show together. Claire, you were also there exactly 2 years ago, 2 days ago.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
At the Bell House in New York City. And next up, we have
Hey, Galen.
Whiz Kid, although now Whiz Adult, right? Is it Whiz Adult Harry Enten?
The beard has definitely grayed, I can assure you, but it's still nice and fluffy, and makeup does a very nice job of making sure that the coif is quite high.
You're looking gorgeous, Harry.
Thank you, my dear
Straight
friend.
from TV's own Harry Enten is now the chief data analyst at CNN after a recent promotion, guys. So give it up for Harry.
Thank you.
Okay, we have got a lot to cover tonight, so we're going to get into it. First off, Trump has now been president for exactly 93 days, which means that we are exactly a week away from think peace hell. And we're gonna be joining Lucifer in some of those hot takes tonight. But speaking of the afterlife, the Catholic Church is leaderless.
That was a good segue.
After the passing of Pope Francis. I don't have any jokes about J.D. Vance killing Pope Francis because I technically still work for ABC News until May 9th. But that means that I'm right on target for when conclave begins. So, College of Cardinals, I will be available. I was raised half Catholic, and I'm willing to be baptized for the right job.
Galen, I don't think you're papable. That's a term.
Papa Bale.
Well, according to Pope Francis himself, I would fit right in. I don't know if you remember the quote, but it was "In Vaticano c'è aria di frociagine," which
Impressive.
which
Galen is single.
and
he
another
does
mark
speak
in my
Italian.
favor, I do speak Italian. For those who don't know that translation, it's in the Vatican. There's an air of faggotry. That's just a direct quote. I'm being a precise reporter. That is what he is reported to have said, the late Pope himself. In any case, you guessed it, there is a betting market for who the next Pope will be, so we're going to talk about it. We are also heading into White House Correspondents Association dinner weekend. So actually, sorry, I take back what I just said. We're 2 days away from Think Peace Hell. This year, stop me if you've heard this before, but there's been some consternation over how exactly the media should handle Trump. This is a conversation that has been happening for about a decade, and lucky for us, we have some of the most astute, or at least most obscenity-laden media critics on the stage tonight. And yes, Nate Silver, to answer your question, you can swear.
It's a fucking comedy show.
And if everyone behaves, I have a game that we're also going to play called Guess Which Politics or Media Celebrity Said This. And then we will also hopefully get to some listener questions. But there is a real comedy show on after us, so we are time limited. So let's get right into it. And let's start with, I've got the resident Catholic to my right here. Let's start with the Pope. So I went straight to Polymarket, which, yes, Nate does consult for. I'll get that out of the way for you. Did somebody just say we know?
It's like Twitter's in the room.
Yeah.
Peter Thiel.
Okay, so here we go. Pietro Parolin leads the pack with a 29% chance of becoming Pope. According to the New York Times, the 70-year-old cardinal has been Pope Francis's second in command since 2013, when Francis made him Secretary of State. In that role, he's been in charge of overseeing internal church affairs and foreign policy. There's only 3 who have double-digit odds, according to Polymarket. So I'll intro those, and then I'm going to throw it to you, Claire. Next is Luis Antonio Tagle.
I think it's Tagle.
Tagle.
I just Googled this backstage.
Okay, all right. With a 20% chance of becoming Pope. The 67-year-old cardinal is a liberal-leaning Filipino whom commentators have dubbed Asian Francis. I'm still quoting from the New York Times, by the way. His highly personable approach is in line with Francis's attention to the poor and those in need in developing countries. And then lastly, the only other name with double-digit odds of the papacy is Matteo Zuppi at 10%. Francis promoted the progressive native of Rome to the rank of cardinal in 2019 and assigned him several important missions. Some experts speculate that Francis would likely have favored him as his successor, although he never weighed in. Okay. So taken together, there's about a 60% chance, according to Polymarket, that the next pope is one of those 3 men. Claire, what do you make of the race for the head of the Vatican?
First of all, this feels like, so in my family, we do like Kentucky Derby odds, like, because my dad used to work at a racetrack. So like everyone puts in their Derby odds, but like we don't follow horse racing. So the night before the Kentucky Derby, we're all like, yeah, like reading like the racing forum and stuff like that. But I know nothing about these people really. So just preface all that. I think I did do, again, some Googling recreationally before this podcast. I think it's going to be Tagle. That's my betting odds. Okay, and I'm basing...
The first Asian pope.
The first... Well, apparently there was a correction on the New York...
Asian pope.
Thank you.
East Asian pope.
Thank you. There was a correction on the Times article because I think some of the popes, the early popes in the early millennia, were Turkish or born in Syria. Anyway, I looked up so Francis appointed something like 108 of the 135 or 136 cardinals who are going to vote. So Tagle is progressive, but also, the Philippines is a really, really Catholic country. It goes to the point of like expanding the church reach or focusing the church's reach in Africa and Asia. And Africa's much more conservative. And so I think Tagle is kind of like the nice middle ground. And also of the voting cardinals, I looked at this afternoon. Italy has the most. It's like 17 votes. But then there's really a lot of dispersed votes in like Asia and North America and South America. And I kind of think just like really ignorant betting odds.
Is this like FIFA where like Qatar is going to buy a pope?
Wait, isn't in Conclave? Where's the random cardinal from? Isn't he from like
The movie?
Yeah, isn't he from Syria or something?
I don't know.
Afghanistan. Thank you. If you haven't seen Conclave, I am gonna spoil it for you, probably.
No. Wait, don't spoil it because it's part of the game.
Oh, okay, all right.
Okay, Nate, I know you actually have. So you did some homework, like Claire,
He pulled
about
out
the
his
next
phone.
pope.
I did homework in the way any intelligent college student would these days, which is I looked at ChatGPT
Oh boy.
and I asked ChatGPT, this is not loading, which is terrifying me.
Yeah, there's no reception down here. It's a basement.
Okay, good. It's cached. Thank God. I asked it, all right, if I gave you 1,000, this is 4.5, GPT 4.5 is doing advanced shit. It's reading the internet, right? I'm like, I'm gonna give you $1,000, look up the odds, and tell me how you'd allocate that portfolio of $1,000. And actually, the name it likes best was one that appealed to me. Let me look at his name.
Pizzabolla. Is it that guy? Like,
Is he Italian?
Pier Paolo Pizzabolla.
Cardinal Pier Battista Pizzaballa literally means beautiful pizza. Actually, it's Balla, not Bella. I thought it was a good pick. This is, by the way, I bet one time on the World Series of Darts, right? I just went purely by name and appearance. I assume the fatter, the better, right? Pier Pizzaballa, pretty good looking for a pope, right? Talk about conclave. But
I
like,
heard
look,
somebody said online said it was like if J.K. Rowling had to name an Italian student at Hogwarts.
Wait, but how old is he? Is he like between the ages of 70 and 74?
He's 60. Looks no older than 57, I'll tell you that much.
But 60's too young.
Harry, I can see that you're just like champing at the bit over there to get in on this
I'm
papal
thrilled.
conversation.
Oh, it's a New York City Jew. I mean, obviously, I study this all the time. Look, I don't pretend to know anything about this particular topic, and no, I didn't ask ChatGPT, and no, I didn't do some Googling backstage. So I apologize for not cramming before the exam.
Pull your phone, Harry.
Here's the phone. It's a knockoff BlackBerry. It's
This
from
is why we love
China.
you.
They're spying on me right now, and here's the wallet right over here. Anyone want a $2 bill? I have a bunch of them in here. Anyway, but here's what I do know about this particular contest, and that is that I myself am not all that trusting of the betting odds at this particular point. I know that Francis was going off at about, 25-1 before he was selected back in 2013.
No one's going to fact check you.
I believe that Benedict was far more of a favorite. He was, in fact, the top getter. He was going off at about 3-1. So the question ultimately is what the hell do we know that a bunch of cardinals are going to go into a room and then some white smoke's going to go up? I don't frickin' know. I mean, you want to ask me who the next prime minister of Israel is? That might work for me.
I have a sort of like ground setting thing for this, right? Which is that like Francis didn't really change any doctrine of the church. In some ways, his papacy was, and I don't mean this lightly at all, because I think it's actually very important. He was pastoral, but it's sort of like, it was like a PR papacy, right? He really did a lot of work to change a church that had an atrocious reputation, rightly so.
Well, to that point, here's my next question. Since the last conclave in 2013, the portion of cardinal electors from Europe has dropped by 21%, meaning they are no longer a majority. The percent from Asia has nearly doubled, and those from Africa grew by 30%. Now, this is a group of people. It's 135 cardinal electors representing 1.4 billion Catholics worldwide. So I don't know if we want to talk about reforming electoral processes, maybe Although there is a voting cutoff. If you're a cardinal 80 or over, you're not allowed to vote in the College of Cardinals. So Democratic Party, maybe take a hint.
Joe Biden could be Pope.
He could.
He could. Yeah.
You have to be male and baptized.
Yeah.
And the comment, we've already seen some of the commentary like, oh, look at how those numbers have changed. Like, does Opus Dei mean the work of God, or does it mean the work of diversity, equity, and inclusion? Like, are we going to have our first woke pope, et cetera, which is like funny, but also brings us to a question, because a lot of our political debates are getting mapped onto what's ultimately a very secretive, very sort of personal, and the politics revolve around, is the person from Italy, et cetera, et cetera. What languages does the person speak? What relationships do they have with other countries? But we are mapping like right, left, center onto the choice for the next pope. And so my question is, we often say that politics is downstream from culture. But today, is religion downstream or upstream from politics? Which is to say, what we believe politically, does that inform our relationship with religion, or is it the other way around?
I mean, I think for people, that's true, but for the institutions, everything else is downstream. I mean, like Francis had, if you mapped his beliefs onto American beliefs, he'd be like a free press reader, like he's against abortion, maybe he has some liberal cultural views, but like, you know what I mean? Like he's not really, he doesn't fit. But I think, yeah, certainly, like you can also make the argument that a lot of us, because America's so much less religious, we've mapped religious fervor onto politics, which I think is definitely true, right? It's part of, you want to be part of a club, you want a sense of identity from something in your life. You no longer derive it from church, you derive it from political beliefs and who you agree with on Twitter. Like, it's a little bit facile, but I think it's really true. People have energy, people have existential energy that they need to channel.
It's very interesting you point out, you put the ideologies on it. Is this going to be an ideological matchup, or is this going to be a regional matchup? And the two of those might not necessarily sort of mix together. And more than that, it's not just that there's less power in Europe, it's that it's more spread out. And what does that exactly mean? I am no papal expert by any stretch of the imagination, as I think I established early on. But does that mean that all of a sudden all these other countries are going to try and team up, the popes from all these different continents, and try and team up and beat good old Europe? I don't know. But as you said, we're not in that room with the 100-plus cardinals who are making these decisions. And so we don't know ultimately how they're going to actually come to a decision. Maybe it's the one who has the tallest hat. I don't know.
Which is Pizza Bali. It's a great fucking tall hat.
There you go.
Okay, so I think this is more about the church than you ever expected to hear from the former 538 Politics podcast crew, but it sounds like you have one more thing you want to say.
Well, now I'm thinking about, because like what's the closest, okay, so thinking about factional voting, okay, right? Like the Hungarian bishop is obviously the most right-wing one. I mean, to map politics onto it, right? He's like the right-wing fave, the Hungarian guy.
Ooh.
Yeah, but I was thinking like, what's the closest voting system, like secular voting system to the conclave? Like, is it just?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's like electing the leader of the House, right? Kind of, and those elections are notoriously quite unpredictable. I mean, I was going to give like the freshman year after you have like a bong hit response about whether politics or religion, are they actually all that different? Are politics and religion different categories entirely? I know that sounds like a little bit cliched, but people have become more fervent in their political beliefs in the United States as they become less religious, right?
Yeah, I mean, in fact, increasingly people identify in the United States as evangelical, but I don't. Am I having a stroke?
I'm here for you.
J.D. Vance? People are increasingly identifying as evangelical, but say that they don't go to church, which is not really internally coherent.
Why is that not anyway, go on.
Evangelical increasingly maybe has to do with politics, and church going has to do with spirituality and community. And in some ways, the two have separated. And in fact, some of the Christians in America who have the highest rate of church attendance are Mormons, and they're some of the most skeptical people of Trump. And so sort of we've maybe split up a bit what the terms used to mean.
Well, that was the big mystery going into the 2016 Republican primary, right?
Yeah.
If you looked at it, Trump was doing very well among evangelicals, but in fact, one of his weaker groups was those who attended church at least weekly. Those terms have certainly diverged. I don't know if they ever exactly meant the same thing, but now they definitely
it's
don't
like
make
being
the same
culturally Jewish or culturally.
I know something
right?
about that.
Yeah, no, but I do think it's like right, like because I mean, whatever. I'm not evangelical, but like there's a less like you don't have to. It's not. I think there's less emphasis on going to church every week, and it's more. It turned into more of a cultural association, right?
Okay, so we've already moved on to the leader of the next government that we want to talk about, which is Donald Trump. As I mentioned, we are nearly 100 days into Trump's second term. And according to the approval tracker at Silver Bulletin, appreciate the shout out, Trump's approval is net -6, which is down from net +12 when he took office. Nate, you wrote this week on Silver Bulletin, quote, to put this a bit clinically, on a scale from -100 to +100, where -100 is Trump's term going much better than I expected, and +100 much worse, I'd say we're probably at a +75 or a +80.
Chad, would
so
you break
far.
up that sentence at all? Or Megan, if you're in the house.
There were a lot of numbers there, but just to abbreviate a bit, you think that things are going a lot worse than your expectations.
I might downgrade to like a +70. Positive is bad in this case, right? Maybe a
Why?
+70.
Obvious.
Why?
Because Elon's
After
out
the-
of the government, because he's probably not going to fire the Fed chair, because today he was wanting to be nice to China. We'll see about tomorrow, right?
But I'm just
bad,
curious,
bad, yeah.
when you wrote I think Tuesday, when you wrote this, why did you feel that way? And this is specific to your expectations going into Trump's second term, not just, rating Trump's second term overall.
Look, I mean, the tariffs are a big part of it. This might be like, I don't know if it's the first self-induced recession in U.S. history, but like the first kind of like self-induced recession since World War II, I think probably, right? I think one thing that people really forgot about a little bit is like, okay, Trump gets elected, everybody is, not really like shocked in the way they were in 2016 because it was kind of 50-50 in the polling, but like he appointed all these really dubious and/or incompetent people who were confirmed by, except for Matt Gaetz, right, were confirmed by the Senate, right? And like, I've been joking on Risky Business, my podcast.
Working it in.
I kind of missed Jared Kushner, right? I kind of missed like randomly somewhat competent people, right? And also one consequence of the fact that like Trump understood he had a good chance of winning the election because Democrats were stupid to fucking nominate 82-year-old Joe Biden, right? Is they prepared for this, and I think in the first 30 days you saw some of that preparation, but now it's defaulting more toward the chaos of not having enough competent people, not having any guardrails, right? Not having a Congress that keeps Trump in check, and I understand the incentives there, right? And it becomes like a little like I'm not one of those like super capital D democracies in crisis. I'm in like lowercase and maybe upgrading to like italics now, right? But it's kind of weird that like the fate of democracy like depends on like Brett Kavanaugh pretty much, right? That those
We were just talking about boofing before we got on stage. Does no one remember that?
But
Does anyone remember what it means?
Until the midterms, the most important question is like, how much restraint will the Supreme Court put on Trump, who is challenging it in all sorts of areas, and how effective will that be? So I'm trying to be precise. Maybe it would get edited in the 538 process, but like it's I think we're not at the point where it's like there'll never be an election again. But like look, it's bad, and I think in different ways than the first term.
Harry?
When I asked why earlier, I was just wondering why good is negative and bad is positive. Is this golf?
Well, because left is negative and right is positive, right? So it's more right wing.
Oh, you were thinking about an axis.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm heartened to know that Harry was confused too.
So, Harry, I know that you are still a capital J journalist at
I thought
CNN.
that was capital J Jew.
That too.
It's 3 parentheses.
So maybe you're not going to share your expectations versus how things have gone so far. I don't know if you want to rate Trump's performance, but is there particular sort of data or story that sticks out to you as representative of how things are going